Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today, I thought I'd wanted initially to focus on these two pens. This is the Asvine P20 and the Moonman or Majohn M800. These are both heavily inspired by the Leonardo Momento Zero. Now, I don't have a Momento Zero. What I do have is a Momento Zero Grande. This will make a very quick appearance just to get an idea for the shape. Not going to include this in the comparison because it's a different size, but I am going to include this one. This is the Leonardo Momento Magico, which is very similar to that Momento Zero. So I thought that would be a good one to include in my comparison. Get all three lined up. There we go. So what we're going to do is take a quick look at the pens. We'll look at the body. And then what we'll do is do some writing samples with them, and then I'll give you my feelings for how they behave, how they perform. Welcome down to the table. Here we've got today's three pens. We've got the Asvine P20, we've got the Majohn M800, and we've got the Leonardo Momento Magico. Three very similar looking pens. The first two, Chinese-made pens, I would say very heavily inspired by the Leonardo Momento Zero line. And then we've got the Leonardo itself. Again, this is the Magico model, not the Momento Zero. Very quick appearance here. This is the Leonardo Momento Zero Grande. Reason I've not included this, it is a longer pen than the others. And I thought let's stick with three that are very similar in terms of looks. So let's have a quick walk through the bodies. Not going to focus too much on each pen. I have got individual reviews for each of these pens. All of them pointed ends. There we go. Very similar in terms of looks. We've got this very pretty colour here on the Asvine P20. Just look at this as I turn this around. Really nice. Loads of interest there. Let me just move it even a little bit up further. There you are. Just look at this. Very, very nice. With the M800, this is the green version. There's 4 colours available in this. Again, I love the resin on this. Turning that around. And then on the Magico, we've got this meal colour or honey. Like a cracked ice type effect there. Again, we've got loads of different colours coming through. Get that to sit right. The P20 is a piston filling pen. And on here, we've got a fairly small ink window. Just about usable. You can see there, you can actually see some of the silver from the ink. The ink in here is a Star Bright ink, so there's a load of shimmer in there. The M800, this one is converter. Again, let's pop that back together. And then with the Magico, this one is also a piston filler, but with a really big ink window that is really, really useful. Very easy to see ink level. As you see, this one is still fairly full. Ink in both these piston fillers seems to last and last and last. They've both got a really nice capacity. If we take the caps off, half, 1, 1.5, 2, about 2.5 turns there to take that cap off. The cap on here, we've got a solid band running around the bottom there. A little bit of decoration on that. With the M800, half, 1, about 1.25 turns. On here, we've got just really 2 parallel gold coloured bands running around the bottom, and then we've got a little bit more of that material. And then with the Magico, half, 1, just over 1 turn. And here we've got a wide gold band, and then we've got a little bit more of that material down the bottom. And rather than being engraved, the pattern on this is cut out. Let's take a closer look at the nibs. Just to make it easier, whilst I zoom in, I shall there put them next to each other. So with the Asvine nib, loads of engraving on here. It's a single colour, so it's gold coloured. So we've got the Asvine logo, we've got the word Asvine. You know, it's simple, it's effective. With the M800, This is not the nib that came with the M800. When you buy a Majohn or a Moonman M800, you get the choice of either a fine Moonman nib or a fine bot nib. I actually bought 2 of each, but they're number 6 nibs. They're easy to change. I like broader nibs, so in here I've got a broad goulet nib, and it's a Majohn nib. Fits in perfect, writes beautifully. We'll see when we come to the writing sample. And then with the Leonardo, here we've got the Leonardo nib, made for them by Majohn. Again, fairly simple. So we've got the breather hole. Underneath there we've got a logo. Underneath that we've got Leonardo. Then we've got Italy. And on the side we've got the size. Unposted, we can see a little bit of a difference unposted. We'll look at that more in the measurements. So all in all, the pen's very, very similar. Let's swap on over and do a quick size comparison. The 2 size comparisons, we've got the Pilot Metropolitan, we've got the Lamy Safari. Just going to look at these unposted. I would say all the pens very close in terms of length. The P20 sits very nicely in the hand. Section does feel a little bit thin. It's got that nice tapered down section there that we see on the original Leonardo Momento Zeros. Does it post? Sort of. It feels a bit clumsy. I wouldn't post it, but I find it's a nice length unposted. M800 in the hand. Very nice, very comfortable. Again, it's got that nice tapered down section. I do like this section. Does it post? Yes, it does. Posts very well. I think it feels long and a bit back heavy. And then with the Momento Magico, the section on here, Leonardo have moved away from that stepped down style, that older style section, and I think that's a shame. They've gone more for this, where it's going tapering down and then got a lip at the bottom. I do prefer the other section style. Does it post? Yes, it does. Posts nicely, posts down onto the body, not onto the piston. Again, I don't find the need to post it. It doesn't feel too back heavy, but it does feel there's a bit of weight at the back, and it does feel a bit on the long side. But unposted, again, like the other 2, it's very nice. We'll swap on over and we'll fetch in the rule of measuring. Here we've got the rule of measuring. We'll start with the Asvine. So with the cap on, the total length comes in at 14.5 centimetres. Unposted. If I can stop it from rolling, let me just pop the cap behind it maybe. I don't know, it doesn't want to just sit there for me today. There we go, unposted, 12.9 centimetres. I say doesn't really post, so not going to measure it posted. The width of the body is 1.39 centimetres. The width of the cap at its widest point, 1.5. The section goes from 1.04 up to 1.17. So that's the Asvine. With the M800. Total length, 14.2, so a little bit slightly shorter. Unposted. Again, it wants to roll. I must have my desk slightly on an angle today. Unposted, 12.7 centimetres. Again, slightly shorter. This one will post, so posted. Comes in at 16.6 centimetres. The width of the body, again at its widest, is 1.4 centimetres. The cap, 1.5 centimetres. And the section goes from 1.0 up to 1.2. So within, measuring accuracy of the other one. Finally, the Magico. I'll pop that down. So the full length is 14.5 centimetres. So that's the same as we saw with the Asvine. Let's pop the cap down straight away to see if we can stop it rolling. Unposted is 13.1, so slightly longer than both the other pens. Posted, say this one does post really well, and it posts at 16.9 centimetres. The width of the body at its widest, which is about here. It's 1.31, so it's slightly narrower than the other two pens. The width of the cap, though, is 1.57, so slightly wider. Then the section goes from 1.12 down here at the narrowest point. That goes up to 1.2. So again, within the same level of accuracy for the other two. Let's swap on over. We'll fetch in the scales of weighing. Here we've got the scales of weighing. Now remember, there is ink in all these pens and the amount of ink is different. And that could, only by maybe less than a gram, but it could affect the weights. So the Asvine full pen, 29 grams. Body, if I can stop it from rolling, 20 grams. The cap, 10 grams. The M800 full pen, 24 grams. Body, if I can stop it from rolling, just trying to get a light touch on this, just stop it rolling, 17 grams, and then 7 grams there for the cap. That doesn't seem right. 7 and 7 is 24, isn't it? And what was the full weight? That was 18 that time. Oh, 24, so it was right. I don't know why my pub brain was going absolutely mental then. So, with the Magico, 25 grams, body alone, again, let me just gently try and touch this, 18 grams, and the cap, 8 grams. So all the pens in terms of weight, again, very, very similar. Let's swap on over and we'll fetch in the notepad of testing. Just dropping in to interrupt your regular programming. Would you like to help support the channel? If so, please consider joining as a member. As a member, you'll get early access to my videos. I normally upload them a couple of days before they go out, and as soon as they're uploaded, they'll be released to members. There'll also be a shout out at the end of the videos, and then as we get the members coming in, we'll actually chat among ourselves and work out what other perks, what other things you'd like me to add in. You know, would you like maybe a monthly live chat just for members? All down to us. So please, if you can, consider joining the channel. A link will be in the description down below. Here we've got the notepad of testing. This is Ayush paper, 100 GSM paper. It's made in India. It's really nice, got a nice texture to it. And I like the texture. It also gives that a little bit more feedback when I'm writing. Slightly off-white colour, so it's not a standard white. It's more of like a creamy ivory type colour. So we're going to start with the P20. So before I start writing with this, what I'm going to do is agitate it, There we go. There's not a lot of ink in here, but the ink in here is a star brighting, so I want to give chance to get the star bright, the shimmer particles into suspension. So we've got an Asvine P20. This comes with a medium nib. The price for this pen is 44 Aussie dollars. The ink is by Diamine and it's Glacier. We'll do the Wasky Squirrel grid. Fill in the ups and downs. Going across. And then checks. Then some diagonals. Line variation. There's no pressure. This is with some pressure. So we can get a slightly wider line. No pressure with, none, and with. Going to move the mic down to the page and write a sentence. I like that. There's nice tactile feed to it, back to it. It's quite enjoyable. Final test. And then we'll go backwards. pretty enjoyable to write with. I say there's nice feedback coming from this. It's not smooth, not overly smooth, but it's not catching on the paper either. It's just going over there, letting you know that it's writing. Just going to lift this up, see if we can take a closer look. Hopefully you can see some of that star bright going through. Oh, the local dogs are having a conversation. There we go. The pen's getting quite low on ink, which is why I think the amount of star bright is starting to reduce a bit. But certainly to my eye, I can see loads of silver on there. And hopefully this is coming over on the camera. So that's the Asvine P20. Just pop this back down. Coming up next, we've got the Majohn or the Moonman M800. So this is the Majohn M800. This has got a broad, I say it's a goulet nib, it's a broad Yoho nib. Price for the pen was 40 Aussie dollars. Plus, I'm going to put below, roughly $15 for the nib. So you're talking about $55 for the entire combo. The ink is by Robert Oster. And it's a Ryde green. Really nice, glorious green colour. Let's do the grid. Going across. Squares. And diagonals. Line variation, no pressure. With some pressure. The nib does feel fairly stiff. None with, none with, none and with. Let's move the mic to write the sentence. Again, fairly stiff feeling nib. Loads of audible feedback. Hopefully that came over on the mic. That's partly to do with the paper. As I say, the paper has got a texture. And then the final test. Looks nice, writes nice, feels nice. Different feeling than I get with the P20. I think the P20 has got more of a tactile feedback to it. Whereas this one, it feels stiffer. This one feels more like you've got a nail in it. Whereas the other one was a little bit softer. So that's the Majohn M800. Just going to move the paper up a little bit for the last one. So our last writing sample comes from the Leonardo Momento Magico. Okay. So we've got here Leonardo Momento Magico. And this has got a broad nib. Price wise, this is where we see a difference. You're looking at 272 Aussie dollars. So that's what, maybe 4, possibly even 5 times the cost of the others. The ink, it's by Diamine. And it's Candlelight. This was an Inkvent ink. First time I've really used it, I've got to be honest, in a pen, and I quite like it. I think it's a combo with this. It actually looks really nice. We'll do a Wasky Squirrel grid. There we go. That's filling that box really quickly. Oh, I've gotten the wrong way around, but never mind, they still all happen. Line variation, so no pressure, with pressure. Does feel a little bit softer than the M800, but it's still a fairly stiff nib. So none with, none with, none and with. We'll move the mic for the final sentence. And then finally the scribble. So that's the Leonardo Momento Magico writing, and it writes really nicely. Not as much feedback as what I get from the other two pens. That's the one thing I do think. I'm not going to say it's smooth, it's not. And I say this is textured paper, but it doesn't seem to be as loud. Certainly in terms of tactileness, the nib does feel stiff. Not as stiff as I feel with the M800, but still a little bit of stiffness there. But it's not quite as soft as what I was getting with the Asvine P20. So that was the Leonardo Momento Magico. So what are my thoughts for these pens? Three very similar looking pens, aren't they? You can see how the two Chinese pens are, I'm going to say, heavily inspired by the Leonardo Momento Zero range. So this is the Magico, not the Zero, but it's virtually the same size and shape. That's why I was quite happy fetching this out. I don't have a standard Momento Zero, as I also showed. I do have the large version, but I didn't think that then was a fair comparison. I like all three pens. I'm going to be very honest with you, the M800 is one of my favourite Chinese pens. I generally have at least one of those inked up at all times. Beauty about this, is very easy to change the nibs. To be honest, the other two are both number 6 size nibs, so you can change the nibs on those. I just haven't tried it yet. But on the M800, I know how easy it is to do, and I'm always swapping nibs. But I do like this broad nib here in the M800. In terms of looks, I like the M800 looks, but for prettiness, I do think the P20 of the three that we've got here is the prettiest pen of the lot. There are quite a number of different options in the P20, also a lot of different options in the Magico, but only 4 colours here in the M800, so that is a bit limiting. If Majohn were to do a piston fill-in version of the M800, and certainly in a different colour, it would be virtually an instant buy for me. I really do like it. The P20 is nice. Do I intend to get any of the other ones? I'm not sure. I think if there was a colour that really grabbed me, I would, but I'm not going to go out of my way to buy another one. As I've said about the M800, certainly I would. The Magico, again, it's an expensive pen, so it's not a pen that you would likely buy. If there was a really, really interesting colour, then yes, I may get another one. But what I might do is get a different nib. I might get maybe a stub nib, or even drop down to a medium, just so I don't have two pens of the exact same model with the virtually exact same nib. All of them write nicely. The M800, I do have a few issues with hard starts. I think that's because I've swapped the nib, so I maybe need to just tweak the positioning of the nib. But with other nibs I've had in here, had no issues. And all I do with this, if I get a hard start, a couple of shakes like that, and it's going again. So it's not a showstopper. So the three pens, I absolutely love all three of them. They're really nice. If I had to pick one pen that I was to keep for the rest of my life out of these three, it would still go to the M800. It was one of the first Chinese pens I bought, and even now, still one of my favourite Chinese pens. So these are my thoughts on these quite attractive looking pens. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Have you got any of these pens? Have you got a Leonardo Momento Zero? I do love the Grande, as said, purely because of the size. That's why I thought it really wasn't fair to keep it in the comparison. Please drop any comments down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.